Hi, magic lovers! Welcome back for another reading from Book 1, The Golden Telescope, in my middle grade fiction fantasy series, Jack and the Magic Hat Maker. We are on chapter 14, followed today. But before I start the reading, a couple of items of business. One, super exciting development today, and I'm very excited to share this with you guys. Look what arrived in the mail today. My first copy, the very first print copy of book 2, The Kidnapping King. So this one goes right along with book 1, as you can see there. They're nicely matched. I had my same designer do that, my same artist and designer work on the cover for me, so the backs look pretty much the same, although the content is different. The description is different for each book. But even look at this, how cool. My designer's so awesome. He's out of England, out of London. My illustrator's not. My illustrator is in California. But my my cover designer, the one who did the layout, is in London, and he's super amazing. And look at what he even did on the spines, on the bindings. See how he's even got it so that this is a telescope. This is the golden telescope here on the binding. And then he's really done some really cool things with, like, put little sparkles on the book numbers, and the title is all nice, the font and everything, and my name. So anyway, I'm super excited that this arrived today. So I've just barely gone through it to look at the layout and make sure it all looks good and everything, and it does. So this is the first copy that I got. This isn't actually an author proof. If it was an author proof, it would have like a gray stripe across the front of it, like not for retail. But this is an actual paperback version that's available on Amazon right now. Same with this one. And actually, this is one that I got so that I could autograph it and send it to people who want an autographed version. But since I've been reading from this copy, it's all bent now, so I'll keep this one for myself, and I'll keep this one for myself. But super exciting, so I wanted to share that with you guys. And then, in addition to that, I wanted to thank Tina for her awesome comments on my videos, and I'm very excited that she is super excited. I mean, it's super thrilled with the book. She's having fun listening to the book. So that made me happy. And Tina, this chapter is for you. She was saying that she thought that I could read longer than 20 minutes. She's hoping that I could read for 30 to 45 minutes at a time. I'm looking at her comment right here on my computer screen. And I'll just read this comment to you because I thought it was so fun. She says, "Tracy, I'm hooked. My daughter," I won't share her name, "fell asleep before the end of the first chapter. I, however, have binge listened to all 8 of your posts so far, and I'm impatient for you to upload the rest of the book. Me personally would be happy for you to read for longer than 20 minutes at a time. Maybe 30 to 45 minutes at a time. But I bet your voice gets sore and your mouth gets dry after 20 minutes of reading aloud." You know, that's really not it so much, Tina. A little bit. I normally keep a cup of something to drink here by me, but I don't have that tonight. But we'll see how far we go. And then she just finishes saying, "I'm just being selfish because I want to know what happens and to find out if the milliner granddad is really dead or not, because I suspect he's still alive." So that was fun for me to read. And she just goes on to say, "Thank you very much for sharing your story with us. I've liked and subscribed to your channel. And I'm now left eagerly awaiting the notification to let me know you've uploaded your next video. Thank you. Hugs." So, Tina, you really made my day. That made me super happy. Thank you so much for leaving that for me. And I will see how much longer I read tonight. We'll see. The reason that I keep it to 20 minutes is because I just figure people probably get tired of listening after 20 minutes. And I thought 20 minutes is kind of a digestible amount of time for people to listen. But I would love to hear more feedback from people who are also listening, because I obviously have more to read. So I can read more at a time. I just don't want to overload you guys in each episode. So if other people would like to weigh in and let me know what you think about that, about the length, would more than 20 minutes be good for you guys? Would you guys like me to read more chapters at a time? I kind of try to just wing it and stick right around the 20-minute time frame. But if longer is better for more people, then maybe I'll read a little bit longer. We'll see. So moving on to book 1, continuing our reading. Before I start, just a gentle reminder to please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like my story. It makes me so happy to hear back from you guys and to know, that you're enjoying my readings, because, obviously as a writer, I just enjoy hearing the feedback. So that makes me happy. And then also, if you'll ding the little bell, you'll receive notification every time I upload new content, which I do. Now I'm on a path and I'm sticking to it. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I'll read for at least 20 minutes ish. And then, unless I hear back from more people who would like to hear me read for a longer period of time, and we'll see. I have only published the 2 so far. I'm starting to work on book 3. I'm hoping to have that, that will be published in 2021. Hopefully, by early summer, if not late spring. We'll see how fast I can write. Last year, I really wanted to publish 3 books, and I only ended up publishing the 1 because of COVID and everything. But we'll see what happens with how things go this coming year. So anyhow, all right, all that said, I will go ahead and begin the reading. Chapter 14, Followed. Portland, Oregon, present day. Of course we're having him followed, Inez. We're well aware of protocol. Victor has been keeping a safe distance ever since Jack left the house. He's sitting down at Waterfront Park, talking to his best friend. Well, we expected he would share that information. No need to be rash. We can deal with his friend later. Yes, we will report any unusual activity. Lizzie O'Brien ended the phone call and turned to her husband. Sometimes that woman acts like she is the only one in the family with either intelligence or powers. Grabbing her purse from the kitchen counter, she opened the bag and removed a pack of Virginia Slims menthols. Shaking one cigarette loose, she put it to her lips. Then, lifting her free hand, she flicked the index finger and thumb together. A flame sparked to life, lighting the tip of the cigarette. Inhaling long and deep, she held the smoke in for a moment, then exhaled a thick, aromatic cloud. I thought you said you were going to quit, Earl commented sarcastically, looking up from the newspaper he was reading. I said I'm trying to quit. They help when I'm stressed. She took another puff. And this is an unusual situation. I have the right to feel stressed. Strolling to the back door, she opened it and exhaled outside. I still don't like the house to smell like tobacco, though. Back on the counter, her phone buzzed twice. Crossing the room in 2 strides, Lizzie picked it up. It was Victor. They just entered Flanagan's hobby shop. Store is closed. Kid used his key. I think they are alone in there. Shall I follow? Lizzie read the message out loud to Earl, then looked up expectantly. Tell him to wait on the street and pick up the tail again when they leave. At this point, we don't want Jack to suspect he is being followed. We need to build trust, he said. Agreed, and Lizzie quickly texted the instruction to Victor, adding that he should let them know immediately when the boys left the store. You know, he's a smart boy, Earl said. He's got to be playing out all kinds of scenarios in his mind right now. Wondering what has kept us from talking to him about this before. Questioning which family members have magical powers and why he's never met any of them. And I'm sure he's curious about what these new abilities mean. What will be expected of him? We're going to have to proceed very cautiously if we want him to confide in us. Lizzie turned to her husband and took another drag on her cigarette, blowing the smoke out of the nearest window. Yes, well, I'd like to hear more about exactly what happened to trigger this episode today. Jack is obviously holding back. You and I both know it takes direct interaction with some kind of magical force to make that ring of yours light up. Clearly, someone inside the order is attempting to reach out. I want to know who. She walked to the dinette table and forcefully snuffed out what remained of her cigarette in the crystal ashtray located there. As do I, Earl replied. With your brother-in-law long out of the picture, it baffles me to consider who might be trying to make contact with Jack. Yes, and with what intent? We are so close after all these long years of waiting. It irks me to think that someone could be seeking to thwart our plans at the last hurdle. Lizzie strode past her husband and into the living room, where she took a seat next to a glass top end table and began drumming her long fuchsia fingernails on its surface. Earl moved to her side, caressing her shoulders from behind her. Well, I'm confident we'll be able to put all the pieces together from the intel Victor gathers following them. He bent over and kissed the top of her head, then whispered in her ear, Patience, my darling. Bill's private office, Flanagan's hobby shop. Okay, there it is. Are you ready for this? Bart asked, lifting the lid on the old roll-top desk and staring down at the golden telescope, still sitting where he last left it. Hold on a second. Can you hold that closer to the light for me? I want to check out those weird shapes etched all over it. Jack stepped near enough to get a good look without coming in contact with the thing. What do those look like to you? He pointed at the emblems on the surface of the scope. Bart tilted his head from side to side, considering. A couple of spirals and some kind of Z-shaped thing? I don't know. Kind of like arms or something. More like a tree branch or a flaming rod or something, wouldn't you say? Jack put his face as close as he dared. See those curly things on the ends? Kind of looks like a trident to me. Maybe these symbols have some sort of meaning. It would make sense for them to have some kind of meaning. Hey, what are these? Bart held the narrow part of the telescope in his hand, but was gazing at the opposite end of it. What are what? Jack asked, bending in to get a better look. These other marks. I hadn't noticed them until now. I think they might be dates. Bart moved aside and, holding the telescope with his left hand, indicated the marks he was referring to with his finger. The telescope had 3 distinct rings at the wide end of the scope, each able to turn in both directions, independent of one another. Each ring had various unique symbols, letters, and numbers etched on it. Wow, I didn't notice those before, Jack said, and he squinted, trying to get a better view. Maybe we could have someone check it out for us at a museum or something, Bart suggested. At the very least, we can search the internet to see what we can find. Good thinking. Let's do that later, Jack said. then stepping back and taking a deep breath. Okay, I think I'm about as ready as I'll ever be. You got your watch ready to time me? Yeah, I've got it. Just a sec. And Bart lifted his right arm and fiddled with some settings before saying, Ready. Make sure not to drop it if something happens. Jack nodded and steadied himself before reaching out and taking hold of the telescope. Her face was immediately in front of his. Dark, abundant hair flowing over both shoulders. She had smooth, pale skin with large green eyes like two almond-shaped emeralds. Her lips were a rich shade of crimson. Again, he could feel the rocking under his feet, but this time the setting was warm and dry. He seemed to be sitting at a large desk. Sunlight was pouring through a small porthole window on the wall to his left. She was leaning forward, both hands on the surface, and this time she was speaking directly to him. Jack, you are in terrible danger. You must get away, quickly. I need your help. Help me, Jack. With a dramatic inhale, Jack opened his eyes. Once again, he was sitting on the floor of Pop's office, staring up at Bart, who was standing over him, anxiously grasping the telescope in both hands. Not missing a beat, Jack jumped to his feet. It worked! It worked! That was awesome! He exclaimed. I need to go back. Right now, let's do it again. And he held out his hand to Bart. Wait a minute. Let's talk about this. Bart was eyeing Jack cautiously. What? I want to go again. She needs me. Jack stood straight now, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Who needs you? What are you talking about? Bart stepped to the desk and carefully set the telescope back in its place. The woman on the ship, the one I told you about last time. She was there again, but this time she was talking to me. He said it breathlessly, anxious to satisfy Bart's curiosity so he could get back. Okay, hold on. You're usually the scientific, logical one here. I think we need to take a minute to record all the details and analyze what you experienced before you go off doing anything else. Don't you think that would be wise? Yes, we will definitely want to do that. But we have time. I need to find out more. The lady said that I'm in danger. Jack's eyes searched Bart's frantically, trying to convince him of the urgency of the situation. Deciding to take matters into his own hands, Jack quickly reached past Bart to the telescope, and before his friend could stop him, Jack had the glass in his hands once again. Nothing. He frowned. What? Why isn't it working? He fiddled with it in his hands, holding it in various positions, putting his fingers over the symbols in all kinds of different combinations. But nothing he tried altered the outcome. He couldn't breathe. Are you insane? Bart blurted out, pushing Jack to the side to take the telescope from him. We don't even have enough information about your experience yet to know if there are going to be any side effects to what you're doing. And you pull a stunt like that? Get yourself together, Jack. Jack collapsed back on the floor, gasping for air, and reached into his pants pocket for his inhaler. After he dosed and returned the medicine to its hiding place, he slumped over, placing his face in both hands. There was silence between them for a long minute before he looked up at Bart again. I'm sorry. Of course you're right. That was completely reactionary. And he slowly sat up straight, leaning against the office wall. I'm ready to talk. Bart grasped the back of the desk companion chair and spun the thing around so that it was facing Jack. He rolled it over a little closer and took a seat, gazing down at his friend. With a deep sigh, he spoke. Okay, I need details. One thing we now know for sure is that it appears you do have some kind of magical abilities, because you were able to repeat your initial experience, at least to some extent. So that's freaky. He sat there staring at Jack, waiting. Yeah, I guess so. That blows my mind, because that means my uncle was at least partially telling me the truth. But I still don't trust him. Who knows how much is true and what's a lie? Tell me exactly what happened, Bart encouraged him. Well, I think I was on the same ship I was on before, but this time I was sitting behind a big wooden desk. I think it might have been the captain's quarters because of all the stuff around. Anyhow, that same lady was on the ship with me again, but this time she called me by name. Jack stopped there, gauging Bart's reaction. How could she possibly know your name, Jack? I mean, especially considering the person she was talking to wasn't really you. Not in her world, anyhow. So how could she know you were in there? He asked, scratching his head, then continuing. Were you still in that same older guy's body? Could you tell? His eyes were bright and hopeful now, like a detective putting together the pieces of a murder mystery. Jack scrunched his eyebrows together. To tell you the truth, I didn't pay much attention to whose eyes I was peering out of because she was so intense. The way she was talking right to me was captivating. So, I don't know the answer to that question for sure. But yes, I do think it was the same guy. Okay, so what did she say to you? She was right there in my face, leaning across the desk. She was frantic. She told me I was in danger, that I needed to get away, that she needed my help. Jack looked back at the telescope, now worried for more than just his own safety. And that's when I got pulled back. Wait a minute, Bart stopped him. She said, you're in terrible danger and you need to get away? Like, away from here? Right now? Maybe we should scram. Bart's eyes were wide with urgency, but Jack shook his head. No, I don't think that's what she meant. At least, that's not the impression I got from her. I think she meant I need to get away from my aunt and uncle, out of their house, maybe even out of Portland. He pursed his lips, bringing his right index finger to rest on the tip of his nose as he thought. Bart visibly deflated, sinking into his father's chair again. Well, that's a relief. I guess the question you need to ask yourself is, do you believe her? I mean, is she even real? If so, who is she? And why is she contacting you through this telescope? A device which, by the way, probably belonged to the Kidnapping King of Portland. So what's the connection? This situation is a big pile of you-know-what, if you ask me. Bart threw his arms up in exasperation, and they landed with 2 consecutive thuds on the arms of the chair. Jack sat forward. Do I believe her? Yes, for some reason I do believe her. Is she real? Wherever she is appears to not only be a different place, but also a different time than we are in at present. So there's no way to know. Why is she contacting me through this telescope? Another mystery. And its supposed ownership and any possible connection to me is also baffling. But now I have some questions of my own. He paused and reached into his backpack to retrieve his bottle of water and took a sip before continuing. Okay, so considering all of this crap that my aunt and uncle have been spouting since this afternoon, the magic workers, the ring, my family, this lady on the boat seems pretty credible to me. I tend to believe, based upon all of what's happened so far, that I probably am in danger and do need to get the heck out of Dodge. He finished and sat back, leaning his head against the wall behind him. Bart sighed. It was a deep, knowing sigh that told Jack he agreed. Jack, if you are in so much danger and your aunt and uncle just told you all this crazy stuff, does it make any sense at all that they'd leave you unattended to take off and blab all about it to your best friend? Don't you think if you were in danger that they'd make sure they kept you under lock and key after sharing that crap with you? I mean, and he glanced down to check the time on his watch. We've been downtown for several hours now. Don't you think they realize you're gone by now? And they both sat staring at one another as the immensity of that observation settled in on them. Jack's expression slowly started to change from a look of mere intrigue and curiosity into one of immense fear and trepidation. He swallowed, his mouth suddenly dry. So, let's say that I probably am in danger. What kind precisely? I don't know. But if my aunt and uncle have been willing to lie to me all these years, they obviously have a reason. His mouth fell open. Oh my gosh, Bart. What am I going to do? I need to run away. That's clear now. But I have nowhere to go. Where can I go? I can't stay with you. That'll be the first place they check. What am I going to do? And he sat there, frightened. Oh, man. Pop. We need to confide in Pop. He'll help you find a place. Some kind of safe house. He knows lots of people. Bart's face brightened at the thought. Jack saw the hope in Bart's eyes, but struggled to adopt it himself. Well, that probably is my best option, but we can't tell him all of this stuff. He'll never believe it. This stuff is just too crazy. We'll need a darn good story. It'll have to be believable. There's no way he would assist a runaway kid without good cause. True that. We're going to have to tell him that you seriously fear for your safety. Jack nodded eagerly at the idea, but slowly, as they sat in silence, the gravity of the plan began to dawn on them. The brightness in both of their eyes vanished, and Jack slumped back against the wall to stare at the floor. Look, Bart, Jack started, a new resolve in his demeanor. It's getting late, and I'm freaking hungry. You're probably right about my aunt and uncle wondering where I am, and if they are keeping an eye on me, my best course of action is going to be to play dumb. They didn't act like they were going to do anything horrible to me, and they did allow me to leave and come down here today. So maybe they want me to trust them. With a sigh, he pushed himself to his feet and slung his backpack over his shoulder. Bart's eyes followed him as he moved toward the door. And as far as we know, they have zero knowledge about either the telescope or the visions I have been having. Since we can't figure all of this out tonight, I guess all we can do is sleep on it and talk more tomorrow. Without another word, they left the hobby shop and headed toward the Max, not realizing that Victor was not far behind them. All right, Tina, I'm at 30 minutes on this episode now, but this one's for you. I'll go ahead and read one more chapter because I don't think this chapter is too long. It's not. So I'll go ahead and read chapter 15. Just for you. Chapter 15. Hope. Dublin, Ireland, present day. Arthur was finishing his rounds for the day, a new routine he established in Edward's absence, which he had been following these past 2 years religiously. Per usual, his final stop was in front of the walnut door with the ornately engraved brass handle, located on the second level of the mansion. The door that led to the staircase up to the observation room with the large locator globe. Each time he came to this door, he paused, remembering the pain of that last night with his master. The way Sir Edward had gallantly begged his daughter to spare Arthur's life, leaving him behind, as Edward was dragged viciously through the portal to who knows where. All Arthur knew for a certainty was that Inez made it crystal clear she planned to end her father's life. And the fact that a small manila envelope containing Edward's custom-made reading glasses, mysteriously including no note, no return address, had been delivered just 1 week following that event, sealed his master's fate in Arthur's mind. It was a painful memory to recall, and this room was a harsh reminder of that experience. But it was necessary to maintain all areas of the house, so Arthur reached for the knob and turned slowly, making his way up the steps. Reaching the top, he paused, gazing into space at the spot where that evil portal had appeared. Then, shaking himself back to his current duties, the butler turned to the right and walked past the huge globe dominating that side of the room. He was heading for the closet where the cleaning supplies were kept and casually glanced at the globe as he passed. Wait, what was that? Were his eyes playing tricks on him? There appeared to be a second bright dot now blinking on the surface of the thing. Arthur strode to the handrail surrounding the globe and stood staring at the sight for a moment before pressing the red button to the right of his hand. The control panel slid open, revealing the screen he had seen Sir Edward use when locating Ethan. Arthur tapped some keys, and the screen produced a response. Jack, Portland. He was stunned. Had that much time passed already? Had Jack's powers been activated without his knowledge? How long ago did this happen? It must have been within the last 24 hours, because Arthur visited this room every day at about this same time. And he could swear that dot wasn't there yesterday. He was sure of it. A new sense of excitement filled him, and energy coursed through his veins, electrifying his mind and body in a way he had not experienced in quite some time. Hope. What if he could rescue Jack? Sir Edward had carefully crafted a hat for each of the children in preparation for this very situation. The moment when each child would reach adolescence and begin to experience the magical abilities previously lying dormant within them. Sadie was still too young to locate, to be sure. But Jack... Arthur dashed down the staircase without bothering to close the panel on the globe. He felt an urgent need to get to the hat crafting lab to retrieve the cap Sir Edward had explicitly created to transport his grandson, Jack, to Macpayden Manor. Jogging down the upper hallway to the main staircase, he dashed down the steps until he arrived at the first floor of the house. Upon reaching the foyer, Instead of turning right toward the library, he headed left, past the formal sitting and dining rooms, then through the heavy swinging door leading into the massive kitchen. He passed stainless steel countertops and hanging pots and pans as he headed to the back of the room, where he turned a corner to the left and stopped in front of the small elevator that would take him to the basement. Pressing the button on the wall next to the single stainless steel door, it slid open, and he entered, the small door closing behind him. Once inside, he pressed the disc with the capital B on the panel, and the vehicle began its brief downward journey. Sir Edward chose to locate his lab in this part of the home for several reasons. First, he required easy access to a water supply, so placing the lab beneath the kitchen just made good sense. Second, he wanted this room to be difficult to find for security purposes. So when the elevator door opened at Arthur's destination, he was not immediately in the hat crafting and storage lab. Instead, he found himself in the food and supplies storage area, which was by design, in case outsiders ever found their way to the elevator and this part of the house. The room was filled with floor-to-ceiling stainless steel shelving units holding all kinds of dry goods and household necessities. At the back of the space was a smaller room, which had walls made of glossy, dark wood, with thick glass panels from the waist up, through which Arthur could see row after row of wine bottles stored in wooden racks. There was a climate control device on the wall just to the right of the entrance to the cellar. Arthur reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a ring with several keys on it. He located the one required to open this particular door, and inserting it into the knob, turned and entered, then closed the door. Walking to the left, he reached under the back side of the third shelf from the top and pressed. Stepping to the side, he made room for the section to swing outward, revealing his true destination. Arthur knew the room well. Glancing around quickly, he could see a variety of whimsical-looking headpieces in all colors, shapes, and sizes, perched upon numerous hat forms. There were wooden shelves filled with glass jars containing specialty ingredients, pegboards that displayed a variety of pliers and rulers, and hanging tools of all kinds. Walking with a sense of purpose to the warm-looking maple crafter's bench in the center of the far wall, he identified two smallish caps waiting to be retrieved. One was a newsboy-style cap in a deep shade of chocolate brown, with a discreet gray-green brim. The other was a vanilla cream satin ball cap with rose-colored sequins covering the bulk of it. Arthur quickly grabbed the brown one, then reached for his familiar taupe derby hanging on the hat rack by the door, and immediately turned to head back the same way he had come. Once again in the observatory, he touched the keyboard on the control panel, programming both hats with arrival and return coordinates. His task completed, he looked once more, longingly, to the place where that portal had appeared. "I will rescue your grandson, sir. By my solemn vow, I swear I will accomplish that task." Then Arthur placed the hat on his head and disappeared into the night. And that's it for tonight. That's 40 minutes, twice as long as usual. I hope you enjoyed that reading, Tina. Exciting chapters coming up. I hope you all are enjoying this reading from The Golden Telescope, book 1 in my Jack and the Magic Hat Maker middle grade fantasy fiction series. If you are enjoying it, I hope you'll share it with your friends and family members that you think would also enjoy listening in. And also please take a moment to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and Be sure to give me a thumbs up if you like this so that other people can find my videos, and also ding that bell so you receive notifications every time I upload new content, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Until next time, on Friday, when I will be reading to you once again from The Golden Telescope. This time, the chapter is called Escape, Portland, Oregon, present day. Alrighty, have a great couple of days. I'll see you soon.